Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Hold on a second here. There we go. Well, hello and welcome. I'm Tom Sinclair, and this is Streaming Idiots. I mean, there's just one of me, but there could be idiots watching anywhere, so you better look out. And if you're looking in the mirror and you're wondering, am I one too? Well, very well could be. I appreciate all the folks that showed up early in the chat, and actually a treat for some of the folks that showed up really early, about like a half an hour before showtime. We had some exclusive video content that they were the first to see. So if you don't have anything better to do in your life and you want to watch us live Wednesday afternoons, 3 o'clock Eastern time, come here at 2:30. And we can probably have something really cool for you. If you're watching us on YouTube, welcome. Glad you're here. Please subscribe. You probably will regret it. Never mind. And if you're watching us live, well, it's too late. You're already here. Today, great show. We've got, a real-life demonstration of the audio-controlled switcher from extremehealthradio.com out in California, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. We've got the video that we showed earlier in the pre-show about kind of some of the things that go on here in the studio pre-show. And then we've got, Tim's black bag, which is really Tom's black bag, but Tim is responsible for it this week. So we will... We'll get to that too, and then we've got that brouhaha, the controversy in vMix forum over the vMix desktop capture. In fact, that's where we're going to start off today. Probably is with that desktop capture thing, because the desktop capture in vMix changed pretty substantially between vMix 16 and vMix 17, and we'll get into that part in just a minute. But as a result, some folks have found some problems doing what they used to be able to do in vMix 16 with vMix 17 so far as the desktop capture is concerned. So the thought was that they would make some changes to it. So there's new editions of the desktop capture. This is desktop capture for version 17 now. Don't be confused. If you have version 16 or below, you'll want to stay with your current desktop capture. Although I think they may have freshened the desktop capture 16 up a little bit. If you go to the forum, you can get more information about that. But if you've had vMix 17 desktop capture and you've had some issues with it, well, go to the forum. It's forums.vmix.com, and there'll be an update on that there. And they've updated the Windows version and the Mac version. I know some of you were using the Mac version and were having some difficulties. You were getting some black boxes or something like that trying to do NDI. So by all means, go to the vMix forum to get an update for Windows desktop capture and Mac desktop capture version 17. I'm looking at, I actually made notes today for the show. Oh, look out. No telling what he's going to do and say if he's got notes. What I wanted to, vMix released a 30-second advertisement this week that I thought was really kind of cool. So I thought I'd sort of start off early in the show with that for you. So sit tight. Let's see if I can make this work. And there it was. I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty cool. So you may be seeing that around. Probably you'll see that on ESPN and CNN and all those others. at some point. Now for the brouhaha. And it seems like vMix has been kind of peaceful, nirvana, a great place to be. Everybody's getting along. And so it was really stunning to me last week when there was this kind of brouhaha in the vMix forum. Generally, the forum is very, very congenial, collegial relationships, but somebody got on and took a very critical tone of vMix and some of the changes between version 16 and version 17, especially as it related to the desktop capture. And they were critical of the staff at vMix and said that they lied and that they were deceiving us and that they weren't being faithful and to their goal, to their mission. And I was really taken back on that. And so I wanted to, sometimes you know how I'll do a rant. And so this is kind of a mini rant. And it was one person kind of leading the charge on this. And let's just call him Fred so that we can give him a name. That's not his name. So if you're out there and your name is Fred, we're not talking about you, Fred. My apologies. But Fred was very insistent that Martin could. The problem was that introducing NDI into vMix caused a lot of the underlying code to be rewritten. Now, I'm not a coder, I'm not a programmer, so I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. I'm just sharing with you what I have read. But vMix had to be, a lot of the kind of the fundamental parts of vMix had to be rewritten in order to include the NDI. And when it came to desktop capture, which of course is a way of capturing video from a remote PC or capturing audio from a remote PC, those parts had to be rewritten as well. And so the desktop capture had to be rewritten, which meant that there was not legacy support for some of the things that people had done in the past with vMix 16 and prior. And so there was kind of a gentle pushback from people that had used the desktop capture 16 and below in the past, and they were, can you add this? Can you add that? This doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work anymore. And I'm not a big desktop capture user, but I use it on occasion, and I hadn't really noticed anything that I tried to do that didn't work the way I thought it should, so it really didn't affect me. But I read the threads because it was interesting and I wanted to see what was going on, and you never know what might affect you in the future. And by the way, if you're getting into vMix or if you're getting into streaming with Wirecast or VidBlaster or TriCaster or any of those others, you definitely want to sort of stay up as much as you can on what's going on in your industry with your product. It's just part of your own personal professional development, and you need to do that. And so, I didn't have anything better to do, so I thought, well, I'll do some professional development. Anyway, I'm reading through all this stuff, and, there's some unhappy folks because things aren't working the way they thought they should. And, they basically didn't want to change the way they were doing something in order to adopt and embrace this new technology. And I understand that. I understand having things set and not wanting to have to go back in and reset them, especially if things have changed and you have to kind of figure out how to do it again. Once I figure out, keep in mind, the name of this show is absolutely true. Once I figure out how to do something, if I have to figure it out a second time, I'm in trouble. I may not ever get it again a second time. I was lucky to get it the first time. Just teasing, at least. That's what I want you to think. So I understand these folks that are upset that things don't work the way they should. But the flip side to that is sometimes that's the price of progress. Sometimes that's the price of progress. And the price of progress means that suddenly, and sometimes you may not have legacy support. You may have to give up something that was the way you always did it in order to have something new that's better. And there's just a disconnect, a break in between those two. And I understand that, and I understand it's painful, and nobody wants to do it, but sometimes that's necessary. And the folks at vMix posted in the forum that said, we really appreciate your viewpoint, but it's not possible for us to go back and rewrite everything in order to adopt all this legacy functions into it. And that's where Fred came in and said, oh, you're lying. It is possible. I'm a programmer. I know about these things. And, I'm an expert, and I've done this and I've done that. And you can go all these places and check all my credentials and references. And that really set me back. I can understand the sentiment, but I can't understand having such lack of self-control to regurgitate all that into a public forum. And, if you've watched my show for a while, you've probably either gotten a hint or I've come right out and said that I'm a Christian. But I'm not going to throw that into your face every day. But I did think that a little scripture was appropriate at this point. And this is from Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, which is in the back of the Bible, Matthew 18:15. And this is a loose translation, so bear with me here. If your brother acts wrongly against you, in parentheses, and changes your desktop capture, go and point out his fault to him when only you and he are there. I.e., don't go announce it into public. And if he listens to you, you have gained back your brother. That's Matthew 18:15. And I thought that was tremendously applicable in this situation. Fred, with all of his wealth of experience, could have very gently, or even not gently, sent a private email to Martin and said, Martin, I don't think you're being honest about this. I think you could do this. I think you could do that. I think you could do the other. And then give Martin an opportunity to respond privately. But to lay it all out in public like that I thought it was offensive. It offended me. I was offended that somebody would be so callous. And if there's a problem, if you've got a problem with me, come to me. I'm a reasonable guy. We can work it out. If I've got a problem with you, I'm going to come to you. I'm a reasonable guy. We could probably work it out. You're probably a reasonable guy if you're in my circle of friends, with a couple of notable exceptions. But and those folks don't watch, so it's none of you guys, I promise. Well, it's probably not most of you guys. Anyway, so work it out privately. Work it out privately, and then you've helped your friends save face. You haven't looked like a butt, and you haven't stirred up a whole lot of unnecessary ill feeling. And if you and your friend don't agree, then the scripture says that you can take it to a group of people and bring it before that group, typically a leadership group. And then if you can't get agreement there, then you bring it to the larger body. But let's start with the private communication first. So if you got a problem, have the courage and the respect to deal with that person one-to-one. If you can't do that, that says something bad about. If I can't do that, let me put it in the first person. If I'm not willing to do that, that says something about me. That says something's lacking in me. Either it's courage or conviction, or maybe I'm just a chicken, whatever it may be. But I'm encouraging Fred, and hopefully Fred knows who Fred is, to make some public and private apologies over this, and see if we can't restore a little bit of order and serenity, and we can all sing Kumbaya around the campfire again. Huh? Can we do that? Okay, so much for my rant. So let's all be friends and live happily ever after. That's what I want. And when you buy something, you buy it. You don't have a right to expect it to be changed to your desire and will. Well, you don't. I think I do, but future changes are future changes. You don't have to get them. You didn't buy them. You didn't even know they were coming. Anyway. Okay, so I get this, what was it? I guess it was a notice. I'm changing subjects here. I get this notice from vMix that Tim, one of the vMix guys, has made this tips and tricks video. And I was like so excited. I was like, oh boy, you know, I can't wait to learn some new tips and tricks. And I got into it and I was like, oh, okay. Well, okay. So maybe he stole those from me, but it's his software, so you know, he probably did. So, but anyway, I wanted to queue up Tim's tips and tricks. Did I queue it up? You know, I've done all that, and I don't think I may not have set up the shot. Oh, look at this. You know, all of that, and I didn't set it up. Well, let me set it up. Let me show you how I'm going to set it up. vMix has a new feature called web browser. And so I'm going to bring up my desktop for just a second, and you'll see the web browser. I mean, you'll see the desktop. Obviously, over here, it's going off to infinity because that's a shot of a shot of a shot of a shot of a shot. Never mind. Okay. And so I'm going to go down here, and what I want to do is I want to add an input, the bottom left-hand corner. Oops, I can't do it there. I got to do it here. There we go. Add an input. And down here at the bottom is web browser. And let me go out real quick to a real web browser and steal the URL because it's a little easier to navigate outside of all of this. Oops, didn't mean to do that. vMix, come on guys. Bear with me. Bear with me. You know, so much for all my plans to do all this stuff in advance. Okay, let's see. Pay no attention to the sounds there. And let's grab that URL. Okay, we're just going to cut and paste the URL from the video right there. And when I do, that's going to bring in a browser window. And I'm going to make that browser active. Now let's go ahead and we can actually operate the browser within vMix. This is so cool. I've used this for several different things. And it's already on high quality video. Let's make it full screen. So it's full screen there in the preview. And I will use my black bag stinger, which is stinger number 2, to bring it in. So you guys will stop seeing this whole scene and you'll see the video. Here we go.
Welcome to vMix Quick Tips and Tricks Volume 1. In these short videos, I'm going to show you how you can do simple things in vMix that you might not have known you can do. Alright, so first of all, did you know that instead of adding individual inputs one at a time, you can actually drag and drop them from a folder? So for example, I have a whole bunch of videos in this folder here. I can just select them, drag and drop them into vMix. So that's a really simple way to add a whole bunch of videos or images or anything that you want to drag and drop from.
Oh, looks like we had a little problem with the browser here. Isn't that interesting? Okay, we'll have to report that. So it looks like our browser just stopped right in the middle. Let's give it another shot here and see if we can make it work. No, don't think it's going to work. How about that? How about that? Let's get an idea. Yeah, CPU use is about 30%. We're using 5 gigs of memory. Don't know what the problem is there. Maybe I've got too many. Maybe I'm trying to do too much at one time. I don't think so. Anyway, sorry. I'll put a link to that video in the show notes on YouTube and in the chat here for the live folks, and you'll just have to watch it later on your own. But that's interesting that thing just bombed out right in the middle. That's not good. So we'll have to make a report on that. So much for the black bag. Oh, I know what let's do. Let's let's shift over and we'll call this the black bag for today. This is today's black bag, and this is a little pre-show video I did today. Getting ready for today's show, and I thought I'd give you kind of a peek behind the scenes. This is the show desktop. Actually, that's me. Woo! And we've got that on one monitor, and then we have the chat room and the audio mixer and some other things on the other monitor. And then over here on the ASUS ROG laptop, see if we can get a shot that doesn't have so much glare in it. Yeah, we've got a lot of lights in here. We're sending the stream, we're sending the show through NDI to the laptop, and we're going to let the laptop record it and stream it. Now the laptop is actually Windows 10, so it can take advantage of some extra goodies in vMix for using the NVIDIA graphics for encoding and streaming, and of course recording. And so we've actually got that set up using the web controller, which is really cool. Let's pull that up right here. And the web controller, pay no attention to the others, but is set up with two buttons on the right hand side, so that we're actually controlling the recording and the streaming of the laptop from the desktop. So the one man, one PC deal is dying a painful death. Anyway, just thought you might enjoy kind of a pre-show look at what goes on behind the scenes in Streaming Idiots. And there we're back. So somebody says, why was the laptop shaking? Is there a tremor? No, I think it's it may be the camera that's across from me is actually on a articulating arm that's attached to the work surface that I have my mouse on. So I may be causing that camera to shake a little bit. So that's maybe why the laptop appears to be shaking in the background. So that was the pre-show, and it was kind of a, me kind of getting a little bit out of my comfort zone, saying, okay, let's try to use two computers, but I really want it to be as if it was just one. So I'm going to control it all on the one. And so I've got here on my desktop, on my second monitor, the web controller is open here and allows me, at least at this point, all I'm using it for is to start. I was using it to start and stop the stream earlier when I was doing some testing, and then in pre-show we actually stopped the stream a couple of times because we were having some buffering and we had to adjust some speeds so that everybody could watch. And then I've also got the record feature over there, and so all I'm doing is using this laptop to stream and record, which actually is a great point because I'm only using two inputs. So if you wanted to split your duties up among two PCs, but you had, one vMix HD license, or maybe it's a 4K or a Pro license, you could buy a vMix Basic HD license for $60 US, put it on that second PC, and it allows you to have up to 4 inputs, but hey, I'm only using 2. So you could create essentially an encoding and streaming machine for $60 in whatever PC you happen to have around. Of course, you would want it to have as much of the vMix specifications as possible. This one has an i7 4-core processor with NVIDIA graphics on it, and you can go to vmix.com and get some of the specifications that you would need to see for a second PC. So moving right along, what I wanted to show you now, and this is kind of what we were leading up to at the beginning of the show, is the audio control switcher plugin for vMix. And this is a separate piece of software that we sell on our website, easternshorebroadcasting.com, and it allows you in a multi-camera, multi-speaker, multi-guest, multi-person environment Well, let me just lay out what this is. This is a talk show. There are three people there. There are two guests, there are two hosts, a host and a co-host, and then a guest. And they're all in the same studio, but it would work just the same way if they were on Skype. And so they're all physically in the same room. There's a camera set up for each one of them, and each one has their own mic. The mics come into the PC as a separate audio input. It's not like all the mics are going into a mixer and then the mixer is sending that audio into the PC. The mics are coming into the PC as three separate audio inputs, and that's important because that's how the software, the switching software, not the vMix, of course, but the audio control switcher, that's how that knows what to do. If it gets an audio level on channel 1, it switches to camera 1. If it gets audio on channel 2, it switches to channel 2, and so on for the other channels. Theoretically, there's no limit. I suspect there's probably a hardware limit, but there's not a software limit. So this is my friend Justin Spellman with extremehealthradio.com, and I'll put that link in the YouTube show notes, and I'll put it here in chat in just a minute. And this is about a 1.5-minute clip of an interview that he did within the last week of one of his guests. So with no further ado, let's bring in that video.
Really hard, or something was really coming up. And
so you did have that growing up. Did you seek them out, or did they just kind of mysteriously, divinely?
Yeah, they divinely.
fall into
I
it?
really believe that they were all divinely instituted into my life, and just at each juncture, it was like one person would just show up, and then I would have them, and some of them are still in my life, and some of them aren't. But it's just. Yeah, it's so amazing.
I have to say, it's kind of interesting. I had this woman in my life for years and years, my best friend, could have been my mom's age, we were really, really close. We got into business together, which you hear often is not, don't mix friends in business. That didn't work out, and she fell away. And during those 5 years we didn't speak, I sought out what I was missing in that relationship. So I found different mentors, but let me tell you, seeking out and having something divinely come in your life are two totally different, and nothing worked.
Yes.
So all these years go by, and then she and I reconnected, and I was restored. That relationship is better than ever. But I thought, wow, it's funny. A lot of people have this inkling to seek out like a mentor or somebody in their life. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's funny when you let go and you kind of give up and you're like, I can't make this person what I want them to be for me. And so you open up to this whole new world of possibilities and letting God bring that person back around the first time. And I just find it fascinating, letting go.
It's so true.
And
because
watching.
Even after I got my PhD and I thought that I was going to be doing this and I'm going to be teaching and doing these things and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And yet after PhD, it was like, oh, I can't make anything happen. Like I can't make workshops happen. I can't make people like me. I can't make anything happen. I have to just let it go and see what unfolds. And it's always.
And that's a good clip. I mean, we could let it play on and on and on for, I think it was a 2-hour show. As they went through, it was talking about something called recall healing, and so if you're interested in it, you can go to Extreme Health Radio and watch the show. But the idea is that somebody in the chat room is saying, "Hey, those were nice Heil mics, the Heil PR40. Yes, they are nice mics." And as you know, a Heil PR40 is an XLR mic, which means you can't plug it directly into a PC. There needs to be some sort of interface to do that. And so typically the mixer would be the interface, but the mixer, again, is a mixer. So it's going to mix all the audio signals together. And essentially, I guess you could output different ones by using aux outs, but you still have to end up with multiple channels coming into the PC. So we set them up with a Behringer UMC 404 HD, which is a 4-channel what they call an audio interface. So basically we can plug in 4 XLR mics or even 1/4 inch if you had an instrument that you wanted to use with that. And then plug in USB into the computer, and that will actually bring in the 4 separate audio channels so that the audio control switcher can do its job and switch the cameras in vMix. And that is on our website at easternshorebroadcasting.com. In fact, our guest next week will be talking some about that too, and we'll talk about him in just a second. So that was the audio-controlled switcher and in use by extremehealthradio.com out in California. Justin and Kate Spellman on that. So, who knows what we'll come up with next? Always have things cooking. Always have things cooking. But a shout out to Martin Sinclair and all the guys at vMix, of course, for making vMix possible for that. And a shout out to Sandra and all the guys in his shop for creating the plug-in that would allow us to do that. So that's pretty cool. Coming up next week, we are going to have Paul Richards, who is the business development manager at PTZ Optics, be on the show as our guest. So if you're interested in PTZ cameras, you definitely want to put this on your calendar to either watch live or watch on YouTube. He's going to talk about, of course, the PTZ cams. That's a big part of what he does. He's also going to talk probably some about the PTZ camera control that's built into vMix 17 for the 4K and Pro version. So that's going to be a big part of vMix's connection with PTZ Optics in the future. Now the vMix will work with not just PTZ Optics cams, but it'll work with Sony's and I think Panasonic's that have the that are what they call web-enabled, which I think is a term within the PTC world that means essentially you can send the controls over IP cable as opposed to sending it over other types of cable that are intended for control. So, and then the other thing, and I don't want to steal too much of Paul's thunder, but I think he's also going to talk about their new camera that's coming out, I think in the fall, called the Perfect Track, which is actually face tracking. So I'm thinking, it would be perfect for an educational environment where you've got a professor up speaking in the front of a room, or a house of worship environment where you have a pastor preaching and they're moving around. You can use a PTZ cam now to follow their movement instead of having to dedicate a camera person to that job. So hopefully he's going to talk a little bit about that, although it might be a little premature because it's going to be 4 to 6 months before we see it available. So that'll be coming up next week. Paul Richards with PTZ Optics as the business development manager. Put that on your calendar. And by the way, next week will be May 11th. For those of you that are like, what day is it? And am I watching this show 3 weeks after it came out? Well, that means you missed it, and you'll have to go back into the YouTube for us and pull out the show. But I think it's going to be pretty cool. So, I can breathe now. So, that brings us to the end of today's show. It's been a treat to be with you. I'm looking over here at the chat room to try to see who showed up late, because generally it's the ones that show up late that have to bring the refreshments into the after show. And I think Lawrence is going to be the last one to show up late. So, Lawrence, we're glad you're here, but you have to bring virtual refreshments to the show, to the after party here for the show. One other thing I'm thinking about, would love to get some feedback from you guys, is we would like to do some kind of live, more interactive post-show stuff, maybe a Blab or a Google Hangout. And if there's any interest in that, I'd love to let you register that. You can shoot me an email, tom@easternshorebroadcasting.com. You can leave a comment in the YouTube comments below, or you can just post your approval or disapproval, as it were, in the chat right now. You know what? Well, we'll do that. I can't, all these great thoughts, but I can't do everything all at once. So thank you for showing up and taking time out of your day to come hang out with us. It's been a treat. If you're here live, hang out. Don't go anywhere. And we will be back. Will we be back? Yeah, we'll be back before you know it. Thanks for being here.